There we are. I think we may already be live. I'm never quite sure on Facebook. It's an everlasting mystery. But I think any second now, yes, now we are live for sure. So here we are. It's Friday. It's time for the Friday training. You're all very welcome. Make yourselves known. If you're watching this, I can never tell. As I said, Facebook is a mystery. Drop a like, drop a love, drop a comment. Let the algorithm know that what we're doing here is helpful and useful. Really appreciate it. I've got a really great training for you guys today on healthy boundaries, on how they protect your energy, your focus, and your success, and on how you can optimize your boundaries so that you can improve your life and your work life in all of these areas: energy, focus, and success. So let's get right to it. I'm going to change frames because I have a presentation prepared for you, so you will see me in the top right for the duration of this. Let's see if that works, that switch, and one final adjustment here, and so it should. There we go. Yes, that's our topic, and we've got to walk back through all the slides by the look of it. So let me do that. And of course I checked them all before we got going. So that's the title of today's training: Healthy Boundaries, how they protect your energy, your focus, and your success, and how you can build them. I'm Susanna Sweeney. My Optimize program, which I started recently, helps people clear faulty emotional programming, which drives anxiety, overwhelm, procrastination, imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, and many other problems that faulty emotional programming creates. Today's training is about understanding boundaries, and I'm going to give you all the tools you need to start optimizing your own boundaries for relief from all of these things I named, and for improved success in any and every area in life. There's a free training that goes with today's presentation that you can claim. It's open to you to claim. What you've got to do is two things to keep in mind. You gotta comment under this video and say advocate training. You also have to DM me on Messenger with the word advocate for become your own best advocate, and include your best email address. So this free training, sorry, it's actually 97 euros normally, the price of this training. Include your best email address. I'm giving it away in exchange for your email address. So that will subscribe you to my weekly emails, and you will receive other notifications about free events and so on. Again, drop a like, drop a love as we're moving into this presentation. If you're watching on replay, drop a hashtag replay. That's great. I'm looking forward to seeing comments underneath this post, and thank you for taking part. Now, what we'll cover today. First of all, we want to understand the concept of boundaries so that we're all on the same page with this. I will give you 6 science-based benefits of good boundaries so that you know why you should bother optimizing your boundaries. I'm going to talk about 3 different boundary types. So that's a model, one of the models I will use to help you understand what can go wrong with boundaries and when they are more optimized. We're going to define healthy boundaries, and we're going to give you practical skills and steps how you can optimize your boundaries to become healthier. So let's get going. So all the boundaries we're talking about today, of course, you could argue there are boundaries around time, there are boundaries around money, there are boundaries with your family, there are boundaries at work, etc., etc. But essentially, boundaries are always determined by your inner emotional state, your inner emotional decisions that you are making. So I'm going to call all of these boundaries emotional boundaries. And what they are is they are invisible lines that separate your feelings from the feelings of other people. They protect your mental and emotional well-being by defining what you feel responsible for, what you are responsible for, and what you are not responsible for in human interaction, so that you know exactly where you stand in relation to other people in different kinds of environments. So think of emotional boundaries as a personal bubble around you where your own thoughts and emotions are yours, you own yours, and others own theirs. So boundaries keep you from taking on the problems of other people or the emotions of other people. Now we're going to talk about 6 science-based benefits of healthy boundaries. Number 1, healthy optimized boundaries protect your sense of identity so you don't get confused with the identity that maybe other people want you to assume. Protecting your sense of identity allows you to pursue your business and your personal goals without losing sight of what matters to you most. So this enables confident decision making and overall long-term satisfaction. Isn't that a great thing? Number 2, healthy, optimized boundaries keep your relationships respectful and they keep them balanced as well. So they help you build trust and they reduce any kind of conflict in any area of life. So that means they make it easier to collaborate and innovate. So these things are hugely important in your work environment where to build success, you need other people, you need those relationships so that you can collaborate and innovate, which usually happens in teams or in joint venture. Number 3, your optimized healthy boundaries will reduce stress levels, they will reduce anxiety, and they will reduce the risk of burnout. Healthy boundaries help you maintain the energy and clarity needed to tackle challenges, adapt to change, and stay resilient when things aren't going so well. Number 4, healthy boundaries help you maintain control over your own emotions and actions. So this ensures that you respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, which will usually undermine you. And this supports better leadership, better problem solving, even when you're in demanding situations. So hugely important for both life and business. Number 5, healthy boundaries promote healthy communication. And communication is, again, so central to all sorts of things in life and business. This will help you resolve conflicts much faster, maybe turn them into something productive rather than something destructive. It reduces misunderstandings when you communicate well. It helps you have clear expectations and communicate those to other people. And all of these are fundamental skills for example, in management and sustained business growth, but just as much for your personal relationships. Number 6, healthy, optimized boundaries help you to give and receive emotional support in a healthy way. So that keeps your relationships strong even when you're under pressure. So you grow together with the inner circle of your loved ones or your close business associates rather than feeling depleted or feeling excluded or anything like that. So let's look at what does this mean? What are actually boundaries, right? So there's an inner area here. You see it represented as a circle of things we can control in life and in business. And outside of that, we'll be looking at an area of things that we cannot control. And so this inner boundary represents where your healthy boundaries should be in relation to the outer world around you. And so that's the model we'll be using throughout this training. I'm going to explain a lot of different concepts, and it's in understanding these concepts that you will gain skills to know where you stand in each and every situation that you're going to be facing in life or in business. So here's the inner circle. Let's first talk about the things that you are responsible for, right? And some of these may be familiar and others may not. What are we each responsible for? We're each responsible for our outlook on life. So whether we choose to have a negative outlook, have negative expectations, or whether we choose to have a growth-based outlook on life, those are our choices that we are making. Of course, they are informed by our inner emotional life too, but there's also a level on which we're making a conscious choice where to direct our mind, whether we're choosing a positive or a negative outlook, right? Feeling our emotions and feelings. Whatever we're feeling inside of ourselves belongs to us, right? So it doesn't matter what it was triggered by. It doesn't matter if it was triggered by something another person said or did, but the emotion when you're feeling it, or the physical feeling when you're feeling it, that belongs to you, and you are responsible for feeling it, managing it, and any decisions you make around it after that. Your thoughts and beliefs, right? You're responsible for those. Now, much of that, of course, will be influenced by your background. If there's a lot of faulty childhood programming, for example, that will have an impact on whether your thoughts and beliefs tend to be on the positive or on the negative side of the spectrum. But again, like with the outlook on life, there's also a level on which you can make a conscious choice around where you put yourself. Are you going to be leaning towards growth, or are you going to be leaning towards negativity and collapse? You can take charge of these things no matter what set of cards life has dealt you, right? Your moral and ethical choices, you're always responsible for those. And that means you cannot blame another person who is modeling negative moral or ethical choices. If you choose to adopt these, then you are responsible for these, for acting in these ways. This is very, very important to know. Your well-being, your happiness. Well, guess what? We cannot wait for something external to come along and fix our well-being or fix our happiness. No, It's us that are in charge, and we have to make these decisions around where we put ourselves. Are we going to put ourselves on the growth spiral? Are we going to extend ourselves? Are we going to take charge of creating that happiness if we don't have it right now? Right? Personal choice. We're responsible for that. It lives in the inner circle. Our self-care, physical, emotional, spiritual. Again, nobody's going to come along and do this stuff for you. You're gonna have to do this for yourself. And all of your decisions and all of your actions in life, all of these are also in the inner circle. So there's a hell of a lot in there that we are responsible for. It also gives us control, right? So that's a really good way of looking at this. These are all the areas in your life that you can control. Moving on. Outside of that is the area of things that we have no control over whatsoever. And I encourage you strongly to work towards letting go of trying to control any of these. Other people's feelings, other people's decisions. Now, when I say people, I'm not talking about children here, let me be very clear. I'm talking about other adults. So it becomes a little bit different when you're in the parenting role. Of course, you're still teaching your kids. Of course, you're still modeling. Of course, you're going to be enmeshed with them when they're very young, and then there's this gradual separation. That's a very different ball game. But let's talk about other adults. You are never responsible for their feelings, never responsible for their decisions, never responsible for their well-being, their actions, their thoughts, their luck in life, their finances, the gossip they may be engaging with or spreading about you or other people. You're not responsible for that. You're not responsible for other people's fantasies about you. So when they create maybe some ideas that you are something negative, whatever it may be, well, guess what? You're not responsible for that. And in fact, you can't control that. And there will always be those kinds of people that do this sort of stuff. It's important to have an inner boundary around that and be very clear that you can't control it and you're not responsible for it. Other people's reactions to your emotions or your feelings. So when you communicate those, of course, you're responsible for how you communicate them. But once you've communicated them in a responsible way, you are not responsible for how other people are going to react to those. Right? We've gone full circle, and this is probably something you want to revisit, and I would encourage you to become very, very clear on what's in the inner and in the outer circle. Moving on. So what happens when your emotional boundaries are faulty? And this is all science-based. Everything I'm giving you here today is all science-based. Blurred boundaries will cause confusion about whose feelings are whose and whose actions and decisions are whose. Faulty boundary may result in you feeling responsible for the emotions of other people. You may be veering towards people-pleasing, codependency. These are things that will not happen once your boundaries are optimized and very, very clearly defined. Poor boundaries are also linked to anxiety, depression, and burnout. So you can come both ways. You can, for one thing, you can reduce the negative emotional charge with anxiety, depression, and burnout, which is what I teach in my emotional reset challenge that you are very much invited to attend, to bring home useful self-help skills that you can use every day of the week. That's where I teach those. What I'll do is I'll leave a link in the comments where you can register to be notified about these kinds of free events that I host. Or you can come at it the way we're coming at it today, which is through conscious awareness, understanding the concepts, and then I will give you steps and skills as to how you can use this awareness to optimize your boundaries. So here I'm giving you 3 different boundary types. And this model will help you understand what can go wrong with boundaries, right? And it will help you to understand what your goal is in all of this. So you can already see that in the middle of this chart, that's where we have healthy and flexible boundaries, and that's where we want to be. On the left-hand side, we are underbounded. On the right-hand side, overbounded, right? So on the left, this being underbounded will lead to impaired self-esteem, impaired decision-making, and all kinds of other problems. Being overbounded and having these rigid boundaries that are too tough and impermeable will lead to a struggle with trust and connection. So when you're underbounded, you're very prone to codependency or things like people pleasing, being too accommodating towards other people. And you can move into the direction of prioritizing another adult's feelings, needs, or problems over your own. And this can lead to your sense of self and well-being being dependent on the feedback you receive from them. Now, obviously, we can see there are huge problems with that when your inner circle is not clear, right? You're leaking out. And when you're leaking out, that can lead to anxiety or depression or other problems. Now, being overbounded, the other extreme, may result in difficulty forming meaningful close connections with other people. And that in turn will lead to loneliness, will increase the risk for depression and anxiety symptoms. Excuse me, I'm going to have a little sip of my coffee before my throat goes dry. And now let's talk about healthy, flexible boundaries. Now, the word flexible already tells you something. These are not fixed. Healthy, flexible boundaries will adjust to any given situation. So there's a constant sort of evaluation going on. You're evaluating each situation as it arises, and then you're deciding, where will my boundaries be in relation to this? It takes a bit of practice, this optimizing process, that you will get steps for. We will talk about those in a little while. But once you have practiced those steps a few times, they will become second nature. And when you have these healthy, flexible boundaries, they will provide a buffer against stress, against burnout, against emotional overload. They will even support better sleep, right? Because you have nothing to worry about. Everything is clear. You're in charge of your internal inner circle. They will improve your mood. They will improve your mental health. And they will resource you to face challenges so much better, because you know what you're responsible for and what you're not. And when you translate that into assertiveness and being very clear about where you stand with various scenarios, healthy, flexible boundaries will also guard against toxic or abusive relationships, be it in life or in business, right? We can have these in business as well. Healthy boundaries are flexible, as the main takeaway here. You adapt them so they are appropriate for the nature of each situation and each relationship. When you spend time with your loved ones, it's appropriate for your boundaries to be more flexible and looser, without, of course, becoming underbounded. When it's about work or business, it's probably appropriate to keep your boundaries tighter and more contained without becoming overbounded on the other end of the spectrum. When your boundaries are looser, they will allow for vulnerability, so that means more personal sharing, more visibility of your inner self. And when they are tighter, that means you will still be authentic, but you will be authentic within measure and always appropriate to the environment that you're in. Regular boundary practice, which is what we will talk about next, rewires the brain for better emotional resilience. So it's really, really worthwhile to practice what I'm teaching you here on a daily basis. And that's what we will talk about next. How can you optimize your boundaries to become healthy and flexible? So some concepts to help you understand and steps to practice daily. So here are 3 principles that help you keep your boundaries healthy. Number 1, your boundaries are yours to maintain, your responsibility. Number 2, it isn't appropriate in an adult relationship to cross over into other people's boundaries. As simple as that, it's not appropriate. You stay within your inner circle. And likewise, other adults do not have the right to cross over into your boundaries without, in exceptional situations where perhaps you give explicit permission. But let's look at the reality, because this is something that happens all the time. People fail to maintain their emotional boundaries. So number 1 falls under the table. That sense of responsibility for your inner circle falls under the table. Number 2, people displace what's theirs onto other people all the time. And you will see in a moment what that means. And you will maybe catch yourself out on some of the ways in which you displace what's yours onto other people. Number 3, transgressing the boundaries of other people happens all the time, both in life and business. And again, this is all about learning where the exact boundaries are, number 1, and then number 2, holding yourself accountable, right? And pulling back from these transgressions and that displacement. So what I want to say though as well is, as we're moving into these, you're gonna catch yourself out in some of these areas. Please be gentle with yourself. It's great you're here. It's great you're watching this training. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means you're learning and you're willing to learn when you're watching this training, and you can make these improvements anytime, right? So look at it in a positive way. Don't make it into something to beat yourself up with. Be kind with yourself. Not maintaining your own boundaries. Well, what does that mean? Right? So here are some very concrete examples. You can see that the circle that should securely hold the area of things you're responsible for in this example is permeable, right? And you're not maintaining those boundaries and you are allowing in stuff from the outside all the time. And then you're responding in ways that aren't bounded correctly, right? For example, an inability to say no, right? Some situations might be easier than others to say no. Inability to say no, also a huge thing in anxiety, right? Learning to say no or drawing limits, drawing boundaries. If that's an issue for you, I highly recommend the Become Your Own Best Advocate training to claim that for yourself. It will help you through that. Feeling guilty when you want to set a boundary. Huge thing, especially for many women. Being agreeable. So that's what women are conditioned to be, and it may become a default automatic response at some point when you've done it often enough. So being agreeable even when you don't find it appropriate or don't want to be agreeable, that means you're not maintaining your own boundaries. People pleasing while disregarding your own limits so that other people will like you, so that you're still in the good books, right? When you're sitting there maybe in a meeting and because everybody else goes along with the boss's concept of what he's proposing that you all know is wrong, but everybody is sitting there and is saying yes, 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 yes. Right, you're disregarding your own limits and boundaries in order to be liked, and in this case you may be even violating your own moral and ethical boundaries. Not noticing boundary violations. Now, when you've been conditioned to violate your own boundaries a lot, and that's probably the case in some of these areas here, you may not even notice boundary violations anymore. So you've got to train yourself to pick up on those. And sometimes you're not going to notice until the moment has passed. And that's okay. You can then retrace it, revisit it, and change your decision around that and come back to the other person and say, well, actually, I made a mistake and my answer is now different. My answer is now no. And that's okay. Being afraid of consequences if you turn another person down, right? Happens all the time. Not clear on your limits and boundaries, right? So you got to learn where you actually stand, where you want your boundaries to be, or the need to over-explain or apologize for the decisions you're making. Guess what? When you give a no, you don't need to explain. You don't need to apologize either. Unless in exceptional situations you absolutely want to, right? Displacing what's yours onto others. Now, again, you're going to probably find yourself here in some areas. So this is when the circle around your inner area is also permeable, but what happens is not that you're letting stuff in, it's more that you're placing responsibility that should be inside the circle outside it. Holding other people responsible for your feelings. You made me feel angry. Well, guess what? You're responsible for that anger once you feel it, no matter what triggered it, what behavior or what event triggered that anger. The anger is still yours to hold, to feel, and any decisions you're making around that are your responsibility as well. Pointing fingers at other people for your moral or ethical choices. I did it because everyone did. We already talked about that. In an extreme scenario, that won't help you in a court of law, right? You've got to be in charge of that yourself. Expecting other people to read your mind. Now that one is so widespread. Expecting that other people will know where you want your boundary to be. Expecting that other people will know what you're feeling. Guess what? You're responsible for communicating those things clearly and helping other people along with understanding where your boundary is. Expecting others to anticipate and fulfill your needs and wants. Same thing. You got to communicate them, and other people are not responsible for your needs and wants as such, not in adult life. Maybe in a very close relationship, those boundaries are going to be looser, right? But still, ultimately, the responsibility is yours. So be very clear on that. Blaming other people or blaming circumstances for why things haven't worked out for you. No, 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 no. It's that responsibility for things working out, for growth mindset versus negative outlook in life. That choice is ultimately yours to make, and you're responsible for that. And finally, blaming other people for your actions, an absolute no-no. You're responsible for all of your decisions and actions. But people do it all the time. So as I said, be kind with yourself. If you're catching yourself here, it's great that you're developing awareness, and you can use this awareness to optimize your boundaries. That's what we're here for today. And last but not least, transgressing the boundaries of other people is equally as common, happens every day. Things like lying to other people, betraying, deceiving other people, pointing the finger at other people for your moral, ethical choices. I did it because everyone did. I did it because my boss said so. You're still responsible for your own. Not accepting when another person says no, patronizing other people. That's a boundary crossing where you're clearly invading the boundary of other people. And you can see here now how the arrows are pointing inside the boundary of other people. Not okay. Intimidating other people, not okay. So some people try to get their way by being intimidating. Doesn't matter whether it's work or life, never okay. Using other people to get your needs or wants met, never okay. So when somebody doesn't have full information, for example, then they cannot give informed consent to what your intentions are. So your responsibility is to give full disclosure about your intentions, and only then those other people have a genuine choice. If you decide to act, that's a transgression if you don't get that consent. Giving unsolicited advice. Now this is a really common everyday one. People do it all the time. You're sharing a problem and people come in with well-meant advice. Actually, that's a minor, but nonetheless a boundary crossing. You haven't asked for advice. You have shared something you're struggling with, and that unsolicited advice, more often than not, is not welcome and not even helpful, because you probably have already tried various things, right? So before you give someone unsolicited advice next time, ask them first. Ask them, well, actually, this is something I know a little bit about. It may or may not be valuable for you, but I thought I would offer it to you if you like. Would you like my piece of advice? Then the other person has a choice, and then everything is very clean around it, and you've also taken away any sense of superiority. It may or may not be helpful for them, right? Belittling other people, humiliating other people, shaming other people might make you feel powerful for a moment, but it's transgressing their boundaries and it's not okay behavior. Not allowing other people to express themselves. So that means like closing someone down or walking away, maybe ghosting them. All of those things are actually boundary transgressions designed to take responsibility of you for that inner circle and trying to give it to the other party, and that's not okay. So this model was designed to help you understand more the things that can go wrong with boundaries. And now let's look more at what you can do. So here are 7 tips or 7 steps on the how-to of optimizing your boundaries. And so the very first one, mindful observation, is something I recommend all of the time. If you've watched any of these trainings, you will have heard me recommend this before. It's like developing an imaginary observer who sits on your shoulder, who goes through everyday life with you and observes you. And in this context here, you're going to task your observer with looking out for these concepts, right? You're going to learn these concepts, the underbounded, overbounded, and the 3 things that can go wrong around boundaries. And then you're going to look out for how well you're taking charge of your inner area. And that's where you can make changes, right? You cannot make changes about outside of that. So your observer is going to look out for how well you maintain this inner area and any areas where you may be displacing yours onto others or transgressing. And that will help you rein in your control of your own boundaries. Because number 2, you're gonna accept responsibility for your own boundaries. This is really vital. Accept responsibility for your emotional boundaries, for what's in that inner circle, and start living life that way. It will change, I promise you, it will change actually everything for you. It will change how you look at life, how you look at your opportunities in life, whether you choose a negative or positive outlook, and so many other things. It will open doors for you when you accept responsibility for that inner circle. You need to be very clear about your needs and your limits. That's number 3. So if you aren't currently very clear, if perhaps you're minding other people a lot, then become very clear and start writing those things down. It's really good to write them down so you can include those things in your mindful observation and then make decisions around where you want your correct boundaries to be. You're being in charge of that inner circle. And then number 4, you're going to communicate boundaries assertively. Now that's an all-day, everyday task, because in every given situation, you're going to be evaluating your boundaries and communicating assertively over and over again. Takes some learning and getting used to. Now, if assertiveness is difficult for you, the Become Your Own Best Advocate training includes other options that are going to get you on the road. So if that's you, do claim the training, which is on free offer for you here today if you take the steps that I outlined. Number 5, you're going to be reflecting, reassessing, troubleshooting regularly, probably on a daily or weekly basis. You're going to look back on how your boundaries were in various areas. You will learn there are certain places where you are vulnerable, right? Where your inner circle is leaking, is porous. And it's in those crucial places that you will concentrate your efforts. And keep coming back to those, reflect on how well it's been working for you and fix it when it isn't. And number 6, be kind to yourself throughout all of this. I've already talked about that. It's a learning process. These faulty boundaries very often are passed on through faulty childhood programming. passed on within families. They're also passed on in our culture, right? So you can pick them up from anywhere, and it's great you're engaging with it. It's great you're curious about it. It's great you're willing to accept that responsibility. It's great you're willing to make those changes. So give yourself credit for all of that and be kind to yourself throughout. Now here are the details once more on how to claim the Become Your Own Best Advocate training, which is normally 97 euros. That's listed wrong on this slide as well as it was on the first one. So DM me, this is what you gotta do, DM me on Facebook Messenger. This is my messenger link, m.me Sweeney Susanna. Right, this is what you put into the address bar of the browser, m.me Sweeney Susanna, and then you get my messenger, and then you write me a message that says advocate, and then probably put a comma and then include your best email address so that I can send you this training. I'm giving it in exchange for your email address. It's really worth your while. It's a training valued at 97 euros that will help you optimize your boundaries and make a lot of changes that are going to benefit you across life and business. So that's it from me for today. If you're not in my Facebook community already, depending on the platform where you're seeing this training, the name is Optimize Your Personality for Success. Put that into the search function in Facebook and then click on Request to Join. I will be delighted for you to join. Today's training was on healthy boundaries, how they protect your energy, your focus, your success in business and life, and how to optimize your boundaries. Thank you for being here. Drop a like, drop a love if you're seeing this on Facebook inside my community. Leave a comment underneath. Maybe if you're watching on replay, do hashtag replay. And if you're watching live, put live underneath, or indeed say something valuable you have learned. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to see you next week for another training, and meanwhile, all the best. Until then.